Greetings, today I am in a 1974 Audi Coupé S and I've just collected this vehicle in central Auckland and I'm driving north to Red Beach to pick up my daughter, and we're going to drive this car all the way down to Christchurch. So give you a few more details about the car real soon. Now this is a really special car. I don't want to bore you with too much history, but essentially Volkswagen Group acquired Auto Union Group in 1965 purely for its manufacturing capabilities. They wanted to make more Beetles. Ludwig Krauss, who was the chief engineer of Auto Union at the time, was given strict instructions to ride the company to its grave, just maintain the one car that they had, which was the Audi 80. Fortunately, he didn't listen to this instruction and he secretly worked on what we now know as the Audi 100, which was released in a saloon format in 1968, and in 1970 was released in this format, which is the fastback, the Coupé S. So it's a really special car because essentially it brought Audi to where it is today. I picked up Laura and from Red Beach, and now we're making our way south on the motorway, Highway 1, New Zealand. It feels like it's probably 26 degrees. Yeah, no air conditioning, so this is going to be a fun trip. We're off to see our architect actually, who lives up here in Auckland, Michael O'Sullivan, and we're going to grab some lunch with him. We're at our destination. I'm going to figure out how to get out. What do you think, Michael?
It's immaculate.
This is obviously an aftermarket.
It's a brand new carb too.
Looks good next to the old Valiant. Alright, we're in our old car, which is quite...
You actually can.
It's quite weird. At least this one has air conditioning.
Yeah.
And we are now in on the hangar for lunch. Lunch stop. Some Vietnamese food. Quick trip back to the hotel. A little bit of dodgy parking.
Stop.
And then we'll overnight in Auckland. Day one, we're ready to go. I purchased this car sight unseen on the internet, and it's always an exciting way to do it. In fact, most of my cars I purchase without seeing them physically. That's just the era of the internet that we live in. Getting out of this garage in Auckland though, this was a challenge. Tight turning circle, painted lines on the road, doing absolutely nothing to assist you in trying to get into this crazy vehicle lift. And then of course once we do get out of the lift, we weren't even sure we were on the right floor. We're going to try and find our way out. Laura and I are really excited to get this car on the road and get to know it. There's nothing better than a road trip for that.
Thank you very much.
We've pulled in and stopped here at outside the Auckland Museum in the Auckland Domain. Probably an appropriate spot for a car that probably should be in a museum. I wanted to talk to some of the box of goodies that we found when we were in the car, that came with the car. So there's a lot of history that I'm learning about this car. Firstly, we have the manual, which is pretty cool. This is the service manual that came with the car, and the owner's manual, and then there's also a workshop workshop manual. But what's really cool is we found one of the previous owners has actually probably had this car in a show at some stage, and so they have a little bit of information about it, which is really intriguing. So what I can tell you is, we obviously know it's a 1974. What I didn't know is it's the New Zealand New, one of two imported into the South Island by Federal Motors, optioned with factory sunroof and leatherette trim, also round tinted glass. So it doesn't have the sunroof now, but obviously it's been restored. Interesting that it came from Christchurch, because that's where it's going back, that's where we're heading, and that's kind of exciting to return it to its home. There's more stuff in this box, and we'll talk about that, because we may be able to trace back and find the original owner or the original person that imported it, if they're still around. That would be quite cool to bring it back and show them. We're travelling on the motorway now south to Hamilton. We're about an hour to Hamilton, and we've had really no major issues at all. However, we did have an electrical malfunction with what turned out to be a fuse there was a slight problem with temperature gauge, fuel gauge, rev counter, all stopped, and traced it back to a faulty fuse. Fortunately, there was a super cheap auto open on a Sunday afternoon that sold these fuses, and we got the very last box of fuses, obviously not a common type. Put in the new fuse, we've isolated that problem. However, we've worked out that what caused that to blow was the indicator probably broke down, it's malfunctioned, it doesn't work. It was on that fuse and that would have blown the fuse. So anyway, we've got no indicators, but we have hands. We can hold out for our hand signals, which is what we'll be doing from here on. Here we are, Hamilton, and Hamilton Gardens actually, and it started raining today. For the next few days it could be raining. We made it to Hamilton successfully yesterday, and really the only major problem was the fact that our indicators have failed, as I mentioned. Wipers are working, which is important, so that's great because we've got about 3.5 hours to go to get to Napier. We're going to meet another car on our journey, which is very exciting. Yeah, let's get on the road. Driving in the rain is quite an experience in any car, but you really get that sense of not being very connected to the road with small tyres, and everything is quite delicate, and 100 kilometres an hour of course is fast for when these cars came out. I'm born in 72, and I was driving since I was 12, and I had my full license at 15, and my first car was a Austin 850 Mini, and this is a very, very familiar feeling. No power steering, slightly loose wheel, and really having to understand every single gear and every single gear change and how it works, and understanding the clutch. And not just understanding those things and that's that, but you have to understand them in different weather conditions, different temperature conditions, different road conditions, because everything is different. This is Kerry and Russell, and this is their Karmann Ghia. What do you know about it?
1965.
65? Yeah. It's got self-driving. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And what's the colour called?
It's just an original.
Original cream.
Black. Yeah.
Yeah. And we wouldn't normally bring these out in this.
1200 cc.
1200. Intake. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's nice. So what are your plans with it? Are you thinking go on some road trips?
Just take it round locally.
Yeah.
See how we go.
Daily runner?
Not really a wet weather.
No, they aren't. But the good thing about the wet weather is it gives you an excuse to clean it again.
Yes.
Otherwise you're never cleaning it. So that's pretty cool. Oh wow, look at that. Full size wheel.
And then you can see straight into your fuel tank.
Well, thank you so much for showing us. It is awesome. And they look so good together, don't they? So we leave behind Kerry and Russell and Audrey, and we're back on the road. We're on Highway 6 now from Taupo to Napier. And we should be getting into Napier probably around 4:30. The road is slow. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of trucks, and a lot of rain, so people are not passing, and we just take it slow, and we're keeping dry. It's our third day of travel now. We're passing through Dannevirke, which is probably 40 minutes drive from Napier, where we overnighted. It's been raining constantly. It's raining again today. We've just filled up with some gas, and our next stop in about 50 minutes is Palmerston North, and then after that we head to Lower Hutt, and we've got a friend down there who's got a couple of Citroen cars, so hopefully we make it on time. We're going to be meeting Chris at his mechanics, because that's where he stores one of his cars, and we're going to go and check those out. Made it to Lower Hutt. We're just looking for Chris now, somewhere around the corner.
So check the dashboard out, isn't it?
Yeah,
You can
the detail around the headrest, even with those
Oh,
buttons.
everything.
Yeah.
Spinning
This is
drums.
this is space aged.
Yeah, totally.
This is
And
space aged. I'll grab it and
everything-
I'll get the insides for you.
You don't even need to take your hands off the steering wheel. You can touch everything. And you got that town horn.
Oh, that's an
Serious
option.
Business. Yeah, so it's
Look at this.
dual air horns. The whole.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's utterly bonkers.
And all this
And it's-
controls.
Daravi steering, which gets stiffer the faster you go.
Yep. Is this all
So-
your air conditioning
Yeah.
down here?
Yeah, that's
This is French, isn't it? Like nothing's where you ever expect it.
No. Trigger.
This is insane.
And then there's this bonkers thing, which
Yeah,
is,
well, that looks like something off the Starship
which-
Enterprise.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But it should really be, like a floating, God, what do you call it?
Compass? Yeah, like a
on
ship's-
boat,
a ship's
on
compass.
Yep. Give it a blip on the throttle. Okay. Now watch this one.
Where am I looking? Up at the eyeball or?
Give it a wee bit of throttle. We have lift off. But get this.
Look at this.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Look at that.
There you go.
But the wee delay is just a bit smoothly returned. This is
Yeah.
one wiper. So that,
Does the whole thing.
yeah, look at that.
That's aerodynamic from being in the middle. So CX is French for an English CD, so drag coefficient.
Ah,
That's what CX
right.
means.
Yes.
And in that spirit,
Yep.
also the rear window is really interesting. You don't need a rear windscreen wiper.
Look at it. It's sucking
which
down.
is totally unique.
Yeah.
And it has a vortex in here, so that self-clears at about 50 k's.
That is
you
awesome.
can't- I mean, the bonnet looks vaguely biggish,
Yep.
serious, and then you see the engine. And the hilarious thing is that most people don't realise, I mean, it's smaller than a Bambina engine. The original was 300 and something. This is 400 odd. So this is the big one
Yeah.
of the early cars. But the things that are really radical are inboard brakes, see? So for unsprung weight, both the engine casting and the gearbox just under the shelf are aluminium, which is extraordinary. So for lightness,
Yeah.
this thing, I was driving around in a Lotus Elan in the weekend,
Yeah.
and that is about 550 kgs.
Yep. Quite light.
This is under 400.
Yeah.
They're great like that because no matter how hard you push them, the wheels stay on the ground.
Yeah. Right.
And you can make them lean over to a point they look like they're going to tip, and they're hilarious.
So the 2CV is all about reinventing the wheel. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
So the tyre was developed specially by Michelin for this car.
Yep.
They developed the first radials for any car ever. So every other car on the planet
Right.
owes something to the 2CV.
Yeah. Wow.
And the 2CV just has 3 studs.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
You only need 3. You don't
Yep.
need 4. And you certainly don't need 5. The real thing about these is the car was invented in a time when people just got around with a donkey or a horse.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a wheel balancer to go to, right?
Yeah.
There was no local garage. There was no nothing.
Yeah.
So when you balance the wheels, they're self-balancing. So
Yeah.
you tighten them up and then you back them off a notch,
That's
and they
awesome.
self-balance as they drive along. You know how I said reinvent the wheel?
Yep.
Not only is the Michelin there, they're here. So
Oh,
here
in
are
the
biggest-
rubbers.
Yeah, Michelin tyres,
Yep.
made by Michelin.
Yep.
These are the springing for the seats.
Wow.
Come sit in here, Laura.
Yeah, take those out. Like you need to, like you say, you'd be putting you'd be carrying the pig or the ox back
Yep.
from market, and you
Yes.
just might have to take
You
those
the back
seats.
seats out.
Yep,
and
maybe
you
even
throw
the front
whatever-
seats.
It's basically a ute or an SUV.
Yep.
Literally, this was the equivalent of a French Land Rover or tractor. Because they didn't
Brilliant.
have either a Landy or a tractor, they had
Yep.
this. So she doesn't have a 0 to 100k time.
No, may not get that far. No.
Top
Yeah.
speed is roughly about 80.
Yep.
Unless
That's
you've
okay.
got a bit of a tailwind
Yeah.
and a downhill slope.
Yes.
And then you might get 90 out of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there you go.
Beautiful. So good. That's so good. Okay, we're back on Highway 2, making our way into Wellington proper, where we're staying tonight. It was great to spend the time there, albeit very brief, with Chris and James to see their car collection. I may have to split some of this up into a separate video because it's I could spend all day there recording. We are about 12 minutes now to run. There's just a little bit of evening traffic starting to build, and then we're gonna break for the night in Wellington before we get onto our really early morning ferry crossing. So a wonderful day of driving. Okay, so a bit of a rush to the ferry terminal this morning. We're a wee bit late, but we made our check-in and we're just pulling up to the vehicle check-in. Last night, 12 hours people were stuck on the ferry because of winds. Today, calm, we hope. So, see you on the boat. Thank you. Okay, welcome to the South Island. 3.5 hours on the ferry, and we're back onto the mainland. Onto our final day now, travelling in the South Island. We overnighted at Blenheim in our friend's place, and starting off early this morning. The rain's gone, it's a beautiful day again, and it's a lovely drive down here from Blenheim to Christchurch via Kaikoura. We will probably spend about 4.5 hours driving today to get home, and we'll stop in Kaikoura. Lovely driving conditions and driving really well. I have learnt some new information about the car in the last day. I've made contact with a previous owner to back. It turns out that the original vehicle was smoke damaged, and the reason it was smoke damaged is there is a technical issue with these cars because the battery is located under the back seat, and the positive terminal essentially had shorted on the wire underneath the back seat when someone sits on it, and started a small fire and essentially smoked out the car and the cabin, and that was written off by the insurance company. And that's where the vehicle was purchased for $1,000 in the what seems to be the 80s maybe, and then internal restoration was completed, and then it sort of was ongoing up until present time. So that was really interesting. Okay, so you're going to go clutch in, accelerator off, and up to third, to the right and up, yes. Now lift the clutch, yep, and on you go, and you're in third. Awesome, that's great. So Laura's had her first try at a manual car. She's got her up into third gear, which is pretty exciting. How does it feel, that combination of clutch and accelerator and all that business?
Still learning.
Yes, doing very well. Pretty much mastered it straight away. There. Got about 10 minutes to run now until we get to Kaikoura, and we've developed a bit of a crackle in the pop, and things have got quite loud out there. So I think when we were up in Wellington, we did notice that the exhaust was a wee bit loose. We tightened that up. Could have come a wee bit loose again. I can't visually see. A bit hot to grab and touch. But I'm very close to my uncle's place, and he's a bit of a car nut and a motorbike nut, a lot of vintage cars and things like that. So he will have a wee look at it with me, and we might be able to identify exactly what's going on. I mean, it sounds great, but when we're cruising at that sort of motorway speed, sort of a bit deafening. So it'd be quite good to get that looked at. So we'll have a quick look. It could even be a hole in the muffler, who knows? But let's find out. We've just finished having a little inspection, and we just left Kaikoura, and we're back on the road now south. There's a hole in the exhaust, or there's a break in a weld or something like that. Nothing major, just noisy. I mean, sounds great. Sounds better than it did, but obviously we'd like to get that sorted out at some point. It'll get us home. There's nothing major, so that's good news. So we're just in a bit of stop-go traffic now. After the earthquake, all the roads in Kaikoura got damaged for years. They're still damaged, and they're still fixing them. So this will be a bit of a slow trip, but it is a beautiful day. And rest of the trip, we've just run 1,180 kilometers. So yeah, homeward bound. A wise man said to me recently that one of the things that makes old cars special is the inconvenience of things going wrong. And he's right. Our exhaust pipe broke away from the baffle just 80 kilometres from home in Waipara, and with it hanging on the ground, it was just too dodgy to drive. Laura and I will never forget this 1,300 kilometre trip down the country, sharing the adventure with our car crazy friends and getting to know this piece of automotive history. We'll get this welded up, and hopefully we'll have more exciting adventures to share with the car on this channel. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.